one of the largest faith-based school systems, belongs to the Seventh-day Adventists. Adventists are a Christian faith grounded in the Bible, who operate nearly 1,000 mostly smaller schools.
In all grades and in all subjects, students in Adventist schools performed above the national average.
The schools all follow a blueprint for education, designed by the church's principal visionary, Ellen White. That blueprint, authored more than a century ago, calls for the teaching of the whole child, body, mind, and spirit.
What I feel is the advantage in this school is that we don't have to teach in a spiritual vacuum.
From the beginning, Ellen White insisted on what at the time was a novel idea.
Curriculum organization is very much set by her and emphasizes the needs for students to have practical training, to be able to be prepared for careers, in fact, for jobs, as well as stimulating the mind. And that becomes what Adventists often call the blueprint for Adventist education.
A blueprint for education that calls for teaching the whole child with a focus on skill training, healthy living, and community service.
I take 2 trains and 1 bus. It takes about 30 to 20 minutes. I don't get nervous as much. Well, I used to, like when I was in like the 3rd grade or the 5th grade, because I got holed up once. They just like grabbed and just ran.
It's really a tough neighborhood. Anything can happen to them. Some of them have been held up. Gangs in the area have attacked them. Shootings, many times we have had, but our students have been protected. They have been safe. Students learn to be respectful, and not only respecting the teacher, the principal, but respecting each other, being accepting of each other's cultures and differences.
Well, when I first came here, I thought everybody was going to be uptight, and I was the only person who was Muslim. And when I thought about it, I was like, wow, I'm really here, but nobody's treating me different.
I'm like a anger issue girl, so when people get me mad, I can't control myself, so I just have to do something for them to leave me alone or not do the same thing again.
She had so many problems on the bus, bullying so many of the students and some of her own classmates.
No pushing, no pushing.
In the school where she came from, she was throwing chairs across the room. She threw a desk across the room and hit a teacher.
You shut up, who's talking to you?
Her parents were constantly going to school because of her behavior problems.
And with Ms. Romeo, she was talking to me how to make a change and my body language, not to talk with an attitude. She has helped me a lot.
More minutes. Just calm down, okay? Relax.
They are a reflection of what they see and what they live and experience at home. I would say that 80% of them come from broken families. They live with one parent, mostly the mother. Even when we speak about family values and parents and father and mother, you can see their sad faces at times. Okay. If I can do something about solving any issue in their environment, I think it's my duty as a teacher. Actions. Very good. Yes.
Good teachers have a feeling, these are my children, and I have a responsibility to them that goes beyond, way beyond, downloading information.
And if you don't help that relationship along to work together, then you're not going to get a fire. There's a lot of social studies wrapped into this. I mean, this is the way that primitive peoples all over the world made fire. And so it's fun that when we go in and visit a museum, the kids are like, oh, wow, they recognize those tools, and they not only recognize them, they know how they work. And then they have a respect, I think, for the difficulty that goes into the process, too.
I think in most schools you can't, play with knives and, well, not play, but carve and just do all this fun stuff in the usual school, I guess.
Yeah, right on. Give it another big blow. You need another big blow.
Blueprint was created. Science is confirming how important it is to create a positive environment for learning. For more than 20 years, Jay Geed of the National Institute of Mental Health has been studying brain patterns in children and adolescents.
The ability to learn and to acquire skills is really breathtaking. And it isn't something that stops at age 16 or 18 or 21. We continue to be able to learn throughout our lives. But there are certain periods of developmental windows when the environment really has a great impact. When the brain changes around the time of puberty, we become much more social. The brain becomes very attuned to peers, to the social world around us. And this has profound implications for moral decision making.
If you were in school and you saw some students who you didn't know getting beat up by some bullies, what would you do?
I would go grab an adult and explain the situation.
So the neurobiology tells us that the adolescent brain is going to be very good at learning and adapting to the environment. But it doesn't tell us to what environment it should adapt to. In a sense, that's what education is.
For the young person, it's not only what they're taught, but how they're taught that can create a lasting impression.
Outdoor education and nature is good stuff. Every kid from New York City to Durango, Colorado, wired to be outside and to appreciate nature.
Does anybody know what a link's main source of food during the winter is?
Rabbit, no rabbit.
Snowshoe hare.
So Mr. Adam Marbled and the state teacher and I work together to make sure that the outdoor education pieces correlate with what we're learning in the classroom, and then they get to really experience it outside in the wilderness, which brings a whole new meaning to what we learn about in the classroom.
We took as a motto creative education that honors the Creator, that children are inherently linked with nature because we are created by God and we're created in His image.
And the students from Columbine Christian School, the Adventist school in Durango, Colorado, try to honor creation by going out each year on Earth Day to clean the banks of the river that runs through their city.
Basically here to clean up trash for the community, this community service thing. And we found tons of really obscure things.
I found a skateboard last year.
How would you do with it?
I kept it.
And then there was a decline in confidence. That is, parents were not as confident as they used to be about whether or not Adventist education was delivering quality academics. And we had no hard data.
So to gather that data, they combined both the standardized Iowa test, now known as the Iowa Assessments, and a cognitive ability test designed to show a student's projected level of achievement. They called the study Cognitive Genesis. Over 4 consecutive years, more than 52,000 students in more than 800 Adventist schools took the test.
We tested every child in 3rd grade through 9th grade and 11th grade across the U.S., Canada, and Bermuda. Think about the fact that we are an extremely diverse church with an extremely diverse population.
So one of the really unique things about this is the longitudinal nature of the study and the fact that it was essentially a population sample. There wasn't just a handful of schools. They actually got just about everybody to participate. And that's unique.
As near as we can tell, it is several million students a year who take the Iowa assessments. So these days, when one administers the Iowa assessments, not only can one find out how the children in your school did compared to the nation, but also how well they're advancing along to mastery for that level of Common Core state standards.
In all grades and in all subjects, students in Adventist schools performed above the national average.
And the Cognitive Abilities Test showed that children in Adventist schools were performing beyond their expected level and improved with every year.
To the extent that kids are actually becoming more able to reason about unfamiliar problems, that's a really important outcome, I think. especially in a world that's ever changing.
We came up with characteristics of students that correlate with high achievement, such as reading just for pleasure, having positive friends, good communication with parents, students who ate well, who slept at least 8 or more hours, and who exercised. Those students had higher achievement.
Do you see a man
Students who identified themselves as being spiritual and who were interested in spiritual things, those students had higher achievement.
Sine of theta squared plus cosine of theta squared is equal to 1. That was the main trig identity that we have to learn, right?
Our students generally score as classroom averages in the 80th to 90th percentile as a classroom. We see that from year to year.
The unit circle, the basic equation that comes from it, x squared plus y squared equals 1.
The majority of our students live within 45 minutes of the school, and then we have 15 to 20% of our students that live outside of an hour of the school. And there's a small handful that commute over 2 hours to be here. One way.
Good morning, Griffins.
Good morning.
Good to see you. All is well. The same ones are grumpy every morning. The same ones are smiling. The same ones give you a hug. It's pretty consistent.
Parents have to not only pay their taxes to the public school system and support the public school system, but they also then have to come up with additional dollars to pay the tuition at private school.
More and tell me.
I have found that kids learn in a lot of different ways, but the key component through all of those learning styles is having a healthy relationship with the teacher.
Maggie Kuzma, what is this?
Without a significant relationship, there's no significant learning.
Every push, every move, be to your glory always. In your name we pray. Amen.
The most important approach that I see in our Adventist system collectively is that we teach to the whole person. The student's life in the classroom and beyond the classroom is really intermingled among the social, the spiritual, and the academic.
Great things happening in our school. Please bless our school and bless everybody here. In your name, amen.
Amen. As a kid, one of the most frustrating things in the world is to hear one thing at home, I'm hearing something else at school, I'm hearing something else, at church, and I have to sit there and sort out all of what is true or right. What does having God as creator imply about my worth and value as a human being? What does that imply about my perspective of the earth, my stewardship or care of it? What does that imply about the design and the features that I find in the world as I study chemistry, as I study physics, as I study biology? What if I am viewing that through the lens of God as creator? What value, what meaning, what purpose does that have? And then what is my responsibility as an individual to be involved with that? Oh my gosh.
In our science curriculum, we wrestle with creation and evolution. We don't run from the concept of evolution. We look at it. As educators, we really, and we'll stand firm on the idea that dialogue needs to occur.
The students in Adventist schools score considerably above the national average in science. And this is surprising to some people because the Adventist curriculum is based upon the idea that God is creator, and so creation is a theme that runs throughout the curriculum. Some critics would say or assume that good science can't be taught within such a context. Well, that's not what the results of that test show.
In the world in which we're educating our children, you generally will have people who are looking for evolution only, and you will have people sometimes in the church side who are looking for creation only. But we have found that with our professional teachers and the resources of our community, that we're able to develop our students into critical thinkers, good scientists with good scientific method, who also understand the paradigm of how you can be a good scientist and be a believer in God.
The Seventh-day Adventist Church formed in America in the 1860s, and over the next decades began opening schools across the country.
Education in mid-19th century America was in the midst of fundamental change. Traditionally, education had been all about being educated in the classics, Greek and Roman authors, learning the original languages and learning a relatively circumscribed body of specific texts. In the course of the 19th century, ideas of education changed very considerably. Adventist education is really a part of that.
For Adventists, the Greeks and Romans were considered pagan authors, steeped in polytheism and mythology. So instead, they would emphasize the Bible. A unique school system began to unfold.
And then, of course, Ellen White, she was a champion and an advocate for black people and black education in the church like few people know. And she was way ahead of her time.
It was Ellen White's son, Edson, who took the bold step in the education of blacks in the South with the building of a boat, the Morning Star.
So him and another guy build a boat in Lake Allegan up in Michigan, sail it down the Allegan River, across Lake Michigan, over through a couple of canals into the Mississippi, take this thing down into the state of Mississippi, into a place where white people helping black people are not welcome.
Edson knew that if he stayed in one place, he would have been tarred, he may have been lynched, hurt, murdered, who knows what would have happened. So the concept of the Morning Star boat going from place to place on the Yazoo River, he was cutting edge for his time.
My grandmother's family was living and working on a plantation at the time. They became aware of the boat and that there were services there. You could go there for reading instruction and for Bible teaching. And they would say they heard the singing from worships that were held on the boats in the evening coming across the water, across the Mississippi.
So from that little boat, the Morning Star boat, all of these people wound up here at Oakwood. And there were 16 students in the school, the first class, and my mother was one of the 16.
At one point in time, Oakwood trained 95% of the pastors, African American pastors, that worked in the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Adventist education very much emphasized the Bible, but it also emphasized what today we would call vocational education. The education had to have a practical purpose.
In the early years, practical purpose meant every Adventist school had its own industry, like a dairy farm that helped support the school and provide work opportunities for the students. Today, the dairy farms are mostly gone, but the idea of offering practical work experience remains.
Everybody's required to work. Regardless of your social economic standing, when you come to Fletcher Academy, you're going to work.
It's not just about academics, and it's not just about learning how to do problems. Instead, it's how do you apply that knowledge to the real world.
Fletcher is not an official Adventist school, but a private school run by Adventists using the Adventist blueprint.
Where you go in Adventist education, looking at the mental, the physical, the spiritual. And here at Fletcher, we throw in the social.
The point of education is not just to educate clever technicians. It's not just, today we would say, having plenty of marketable skills. It is to develop character, to develop integrity as individuals.
If you have a good quality character person, I can teach you what I need you to know about our business. I'll teach you how to run the computers and our sales and our accounting. But if you don't have a good character, I can't teach you that. And so our focus on character, we think, is very important in preparing our students as they go out into the world.
Push yourself hard for the next 15 minutes. You are counting on multiple people to accomplish a task. Teamwork goes in all aspects of life, and we try to teach that the things you learn here on the team are going to carry over for the rest of your life in all aspects of life.
was terrified, because when I saw the building, I was like, what can I do here? I'm not a very good construction worker. All I could do is basically run things back and forth. We're over here at the campsite working. Everybody's working so hard. We've cleared out all these materials over here.
Well, the first couple days, all we did was clean, and then the cement came, and then you're mixing and pouring, and wheelbarrows are going in and out. It's a lot of work, but you don't feel tired because you're doing it for a good purpose.
In order to move the heavy cinder blocks and not to pile all the work on one person, we made these block lines and passed the blocks down them one by one.
We all gave each other a helping hand. It was not just one person taking the blocks to the side, but all of us helping one another, making the job a lot easier.
At the end, we needed to paint the school after we had finished all we worked, so some of us climbed up on the roof and decided to trim the top wall. Work as hard as possible. It was the most strenuous work I've ever been through in my entire life. We're in here, we're talking to the students and making friends and having fun.
Over here, we're so used to kids having so much, and over there it's seeing that the kids don't really have anything at all.
The school that we built was probably the central point of hope in their village, and it's humbled me and changed me forever to see the reactions on their faces and the impact that I left.
A good school always creates a community of meaning and purpose. A good school is actually a community that, at its very best, a student would hate to graduate from.
When you have the home, the school, and the church working together as a group for the success of every kid in that school, how can you not have success?
What a joyous time this is to see these young people graduate today.
I think every human being has untapped potentials, and I think that the great opportunity in being a teacher is to be the miner who discovers that gold and brings it up and says, looky here, what you've got, and there's more of it in there. I want to teach you how to mine it for yourself.
Like, not that many people make it successful from this neighborhood and stuff, but I think I'm really gonna make success.
When Isai came here in the 3rd grade, he could not read. No, he couldn't read. And what an accomplishment today. He's graduating with honors. Right? Yes.
My mother was a single mom, as many parents are here. She put me in a private school with sacrifice. And I can relate to the parents that bring their children to this school with sacrifice in the hopes that they can get something better.
It's just incredible, unbelievable, the best feeling that you can possibly have. You know, no other job could give you such a fantastic feeling than to be working in a school.
You hope that you influence a student into the next year. Our hope is to influence students for eternity.